Hi, this is Frugus Raid here, and today we're going to have a short video that shows the best setup for my 2-1 team with Brago and Altan. I originally showed a setup that had a delay of 0 turns for Marshald. This syncs about turn 8, I believe, maybe turn 9. And it requires a fair amount of manual work with Brago and Altan to make sure that there is always a defense up on Marshald before the stun. So once I did the original video, a couple days later I discovered that I could do a setup that was much simpler. And by delaying Marshald 1 turn and delaying everybody else pretty much 0 turns, I can get the stun target to always be Marshald, and it syncs much easier. I can hit auto, almost immediately. The only thing I do is I make sure that Brago uses his A2 instead of his A1. That's the only thing that I do. So if I were to look at the setup now, what you'll see is before the turn 2 stun, Marshald will use his A2, which pretty much gets rid of all the buffs, but then Brago will use his A2, which ensures there's defense up. That should keep the stun from happening. Altan also does, but Altan's going to float because once he takes the stun, he'll be out of sync. So if you look at turn 5, once again, Marshald uses his A2, which would blow away any of his buffs, but following that, Brago uses his A2 and puts defense up on everybody on the team again. And so this again ensures that there's not going to be any surprises and everybody will have the defense up, which is to me the #1 reason that you see Marshald take the stun. Then the last time, this is after it's synced, it'll sync up, starting on turn 7, you're going to go 2-1. And now that it's synced, you're going to see the same thing. You're going to see Marshald using his A2 and A1, then Brago using his A2 following. Once again, this is assuming that your setup is using Brago in the second slowest spot. So we'll go ahead now and I will go into the run and we'll just demonstrate this. So again, the one I originally had a lot more manual stuff with Brago in order to make it work, which is not desirable. This is a much easier. Again, I'm going to A1 with Marshald. Everybody else is going to use their main abilities. So you're going to have Valkyrie's A2, Altan's A2, Brago's A2. At this point I can hit auto. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let it run. I'm going to slow it down on the turn right before the stun, and I will show you, what's happening with Marshald, and then also what's happening with Brago following, so you can see, where he would not have it versus where he would have it. Alright, so now you see he just wiped out all his buffs, and he only has his normal A2 buffs, but he doesn't have any of the defensive buffs, which is what would cause him to be targeted. But then Brago went and put his defense up on, which in turn makes Altan take the stun. Now we're going to go ahead and watch this a little bit longer. You're going to see it go through turn 5. Once again, the expectation is that he's going to, right before the stun on turn 5, he'll use his A2, which will strip off his defensive buff, and then he'll see Brago follow up with Brago's A2, which will re-add the defense up. So you can see he just wiped that out. Now Brago is going to go last in this setup, or not last, but he's going to use his A2 after Marshall uses his A2, which once again is causing Altan to take the stun. Now, at this point in time, this will be the last turn of not 2-1. It's going to sync up going into turn 7 with everything the way you would expect. So we'll watch the turn 8 and watch the turn 8 going into the stun as well. Usually when people are having problems where Marshall is getting hit and it doesn't sync, they're getting in trouble because they're not using the abilities of Brago at the right time, and they're not ensuring that Marshall has the buffs up at all times. So here we are on turn 8. You're going to see, once we get done with the counterattacks, you're going to see that Marshall's going to use his ability right off the bat. Now you see Brago covers it with his Fearless Charge, his A2, and you're going to go into the stun with everybody having defense up. Marshall will have lost his shield, but the defense up is the buff that seems to be the indicator for the clan boss to stun Marshall if he doesn't have it. So at this point in time, it should run through on auto seamlessly. Once again, really, you click auto after you use Brago's A2 on turn 1. So it's the real turn order now is Marshall A1, Valk A2, Altan A2, Brago A2, and then hit auto. So you've got to do four moves before you can hit auto in this setup. I will go ahead and post the Deadwood Jedi Speed Tune link in this video along with my setup information. This is a little bit different on Nightmare on Void. On Nightmare on Void, I do have to delay Marshall 3 turns to achieve the same thing. I'll show that in a separate video, but the setup here is quite straightforward, and again, it's usable on every affinity except green. This will break down on green affinity. If you're lucky, it's a 2-key. So that's really what it boils down to. This particular team composition doesn't handle the slow debuff very well. All right. I hope this has been informative. Have a great day.